Okay, so I think we're live. It's an interesting experience for me. This is the first time we've done anything like this at Yunhai. But yeah, I wanted to just say, oops. Sorry, I had to recalibrate. I have the YouTube of myself playing in the background, confirming that we're live. I wanted to say thanks to everyone who joined the premiere, and thanks for watching Time Terroir Taiwan. And I want to welcome you to the Q&A. So we have Yi-Cheng, who is a third generation soy sauce maker, who's part of Yu Ding Xing, and Steve Chen of Chen Office. And he is the one responsible for the video that you saw and really distilled, I don't know how many hours of film you got, Steve, but many, many, many hours into just a beautiful portrait of the process of making soy sauce. And also, I think, a beautiful portrait of the family. So we also have Lillian, and Lillian is part of Yunhai. She runs ops in North America and Taiwan and is the boots on the ground person, meeting with vendors and sourcing products. And she also is a native Mandarin speaker, so we'll provide any translation if we need. And not on screen, I also want to introduce Feng. Hsieh is the sourcing manager for Yunhai and has been sourcing these products from the beginning. She's amazing, and she is the one that discovered Yu Ding Xing in the first place, so huge thanks to her. Before I kind of get into the questions, I wanted to just really extend my gratitude. I wanted to thank Steve so much for your time and your vision and coordinating your amazing network of people in Taiwan who work in film, sound. The composer of the music is Taiwanese as well. And then I want to thank Yu Ding Xing and Yi-Cheng's family for opening their doors to me as just a, kind of cold calling person trying to sell your soy sauce, and also for allowing us to spend so much time with you to make the film. So I'm very, very grateful for that. So I see we have a number of questions coming up on the side here. So just to let you guys know how this works, we will be trying to get to as many questions as possible. I'm just going to start with a couple of quick ones to set the tone. Lillian is going to moderate, and if we can't get to your question, we will try to follow up in the chat or in the comments to answer them. So yeah, I think my first question is for you, Steve. So I would just love to hear a quick overview of your background. And you started in architecture, but how did you kind of come to be a filmmaker in Asia and then Taiwan?
Oh, okay. Thank you for having me. I'm very honored to be here. I think people really want to learn more about soy sauce, so I'll keep my part brief. I'm an architect and filmmaker. I studied architecture, but I ended up really enjoying wanting to express myself in other ways. So I decided to switch over to film about 10 years ago. Now I do both. And I moved to Taiwan about 5 years ago. And I'm Taiwanese American, originally from Chicago. Growing up as Taiwanese American in the States, we never gave much thought to the sourcing of our ingredients. Of course, my mom made Taiwanese food, but we never really, thought about where it came from. And so even for me, I was approaching this as an outsider. And so just being able to document and watch firsthand how they actually make soy sauce was kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah, I remember when we started, we kind of had this long conversation in New York about how Taiwanese culture was kind of depicted in Western media, which I don't think is like bad per se, but it's very sparse, like few and far between. And I think we were talking particularly about like the street food episode, the Jia one, which again, like was like interesting to see, but I think and I don't want to speak for you, but I certainly felt that like seeing that kind of story again and again was, again, it's a wonderful story, but it started to feel kind of one note. And I guess I would love to hear from you too, like what kind of maybe less discovered corners of Taiwanese culture, contemporary food culture, et cetera, would you be interested in depicting in the media?
Yeah, I think we have like limitless amounts of media coverage on street food, on all the weird concoctions and mixtures of foods that Taiwanese people are really inventive about. But we don't really see much about a lot of these artisanal makers, and there's so many really humble families, individual single craftsmen who have been working, either new ones and ones that have been around for generations that we just don't really hear much about because they don't really take the time to market themselves. And there's a lot of stuff that is just naturally, if we're speaking more to a Western audience, I'm interested in organic food, natural processes, and stuff like that. And there, a lot of them are just doing that without trying to be organic, without trying to do, without following any of these rules or these catchphrases that we have in America. They just are naturally very fresh and pure. I mean, for instance, my family background, my uncle is a farmer. My dad grew up on a farm, and all their food is organic. My uncle's in his 90s and still living fine, and I think a lot of that is just part of the whole, the dynamic between food, the location of Taiwan, kind of the abundant vegetation and greenery, and the kind of food that comes out of it. So I think there are a lot of these stories about the place and the location that I would really like to explore more.
Yeah, I think that, just maybe this might be for the audience's benefit, but I totally agree. And I think that part of that is like the access to those products is like non-existent in the West, basically. So like just the idea that you can get all kinds of amazing foods from like Europe, but not a single bottle of like naturally fermented soy sauce or et cetera. There's so many products was, part of the reason that I started Yunhai. But then like, yeah, just it feels so important to me to tell the stories of the people making it and not just say like, oh, we sourced this and like brought it over and it's anonymous. So yeah, I think that the film, really did a good job of that. And I want to take that point and kind of transfer over to you, Yi-Cheng, about your family business. And I guess I'll say that what struck me the most when I first encountered Yu Ding Xing is that the product itself is so natural and handmade and traditional, but the branding and the photography in particular is so like contemporary. And yeah, I guess I kind of want to know, like, it seems clear to me that you and your brother have done so many other things and have brought those skills back to the family business. And I'd just love to hear more about your path.
We made my major in college was like teaching English, but it was never my passion to do it. I love the design and I like beautiful things. So I think learning English is just part of it's just part of the I'll just say that after we go back to our family business, we make the revolution change of marketing strategy and branding, new logo and label design, and I think which made our brand more identified to the customers. And we also working on the social media marketing to discover new customer and increase the audience interest. And we received a really good positive feedback from those people since then. Yeah.
And why did you go back to your? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. The reason my brother and I go back for our family business for different reasons. For me, he was the obedient one, and I was more of rebel. So originally I was not willing to go back because I want to do different things. I want to stay outside and live free, like freely, so I don't have to feel stay at the my hometown and not feeling nice for everything. And so my brother, he likes, he has the willingness to stay for a family business, and we just, it happened that we have different ability to help our family business. He's able to taking the photos, and for me, I was more of creative side. Yeah.
Got it. Great,
That's
thank
great.
you.
And before we move to the audience questions, I actually just wanted to touch on one more thing. So the other experience that I had with you and your family is that when I was there, and I think this happened for you too, Steve, your mother made like an amazing meal to share with the guests, and it was like completely vegetarian and used your soy sauces and like had so much variety. And I also know that you are part of like a group, I think you called it Future Dining Table, that's doing like community dinners and events. So can you talk more about just how cooking kind of factors into your, you know, experience and your work with soy sauce?
Oh, the local events is called Future Dining Table. The original intention was to promote our black soybean sauce. So all the dishes we made for the events have add a different kind of black soybean sauce. Usually we host the event once a month. The event also play a role in bridging the customer and producers. So because on the table we need more than just one ingredient, so we started to add different ingredient from different regions. So the main idea originally just promoting our soy sauce, but at the end it's kind of went viral. So a lot of farmers and producers would come, and then we hosting the table all together to share with our customer, and all the customer would see that as a really nice way to connect each other directly.
That's great. I have many more questions, but I also see that there's a lot of chatting going on. So Lillian, I can't quite see the text. Can you pose some questions?
Yeah, sure. So thanks everyone for sending your questions. I'm going to start with a bit more general questions around soy sauce and dive into the more production specific questions after that. So the first question I think is great just to get everyone more familiar with soy sauce is a question from Mina, who's asking, Ozzy, the question is, what are the typical Taiwanese soy sauce styles? So, do they range from light to heavy? What are the different varieties?
For Taiwanese black soybean sauce, we mostly use black bean. And the difference in between black soybean sauce and soy is that the flavor is very different. For the soy sauce, it's lighter, but for the black soybean sauce, it's a lot richer. The flavor is heavier, and also it create different cooking style. So for like soybean sauce, usually it's for dipping, and the cooking style you don't have to, you cannot cook for way too long time because the flavor would lost while you cook too long. But for black soybean sauce, you can cook for more than 1 day, sometimes even like more than that.
Got it. And even sort of within black soybean sauces, are there sort of lighter ones, heavier ones? What is the variety within the black soybean?
Yeah, depending on the time we aging, and also different portion in the urns. when we take out to make our soy sauce, the richness, you create different flavors. So some of them are lighter, that is for dipping. Some of them is saltier, and the flavor is richer. So that can be for braise or steam, and some of them even you can do it for broth.
Got it. Great. And you just jumped on another question that Bristol had asked, was to learn about the different layers of the soy sauce. So the bottom, the top. Could you just talk a little bit more about, how the flavors change, and just teach us a little bit more about the different layers?
So you can see on the video that at the top, we put the very thick sea salt to cover up on the top to protect the black bean underneath. So for the upper part, the flavor is more saltier, but the richness but the black soybean sauce, the liquid is not as rich compared with the bottom one, because all the good stuff is at the bottom. So we also call it in Taiwan. We create a name called premium black soybean sauce, which is at the bottom. And the reason why the soy sauce at the bottom is so good, but at the same time so very salty, is when the Koji break down the protein of the black bean, they become amino acid, and which is the essential nutrition to our body, and it's heavier, so all the good stuff is sink at the bottom. So for that soy sauce, we pick up only at the bottom, and some of them like light soy sauce, we pick it in the central, so in the middle. So the flavor is not as strong, but it's mild, and the salty is not as salty as the bottom and the upper part.
Mm-hmm. Got it. So it just depends on what you're cooking it for, what the use is, if it's dipping or cooking, and you decide which layer you'd like to use. Is that right?
Yes, and also for the same region but different years, the flavor is also slightly different as well. It really depending on the climate. So we are just like a farmer.
I had a follow-up question to that, because I think the Taiwanese layers, like the terracotta vat and the layers, was something that I saw for the first time when I visited you, and I found it like fascinating and new information, but I just had such a hard time kind of like digesting that, I guess. But one question I have, now I understand it, but one question I have is like, how do you get the bottom out? Like, do you take the top out first and put it in like batch A, central part B? Like, how is that actually done?
Usually what we take out the black soybean is that, okay, so we will know which type of item that we are going to make. So if we want to make the traditional one, so we will take out the upper part for different use, and then we will start to pick up the center one and the bottom one. So it's like we will arrange different timing and different terracotta, so we can pick up the black soybean inside.
Yeah, and I've, as someone who has tasted these soy sauces extensively and used them basically every day for a couple of years, definitely the taste is really different between like that bottom and the lighter ones. And Lillian, we can move on, but I wanted to put a pin in a question about the fruit-based soy sauces, because I know you're also fermenting. We had the pineapple one, but you ferment the soy sauce with like fresh cut fruit, which I've never seen before.
Yeah. The I actually started fruit-based soy sauce after I came back from 2 years working hard in Australia, because in Australia I saw a lot of local products that was made with the local produce, and you can see the jam, the sauce they put it in is really a fascinating for me. So that inspired me a lot. So after I come back from Taiwan, I firstly said I want pineapple in the soy sauce, because that is something that we all very familiar in for Taiwanese. So it took a lot of effort to convince my parents to let me actually try it. So I bring out for my family that in southern Taiwan, Kaohsiung, there is a traditional condiment called fermented pineapple with cured soybeans. So it was largely used by the local. So I bring out this new sauce and hoping my parents would see that as an opportunity to create a new flavors. And we started 2015 and then released this product on 2016, I guess. So how it was made is after we finished the fermentations, we mix the moly beans. So while we put all the beans into the urns, and we also add the fresh pineapple and let them rest under the sun for at least 1 year. So we just want to know the effort that Koji can do with the acidity from pineapple and trying to create a new flavor and aroma. So that is the main concept of food-based soy sauce. And it was very for us, it was a very experimental things to try. But after that, we got really nice feedback from customers, and the customers start to tell us how they do it with this bottle of soy sauce. So that inspired me. It inspired us a lot, and we start to try to make different flavors. So in 2017, we make the mulberries, and 2018 we tried the orange one, and this year we are trying more new stuff. We tried lychees, and we will do more. Yeah.
Cool. I will put my advance order in after this call.
I think this year we will do the lychee one, and it was a terrible memory because 4 people, we try to peel the skin and also separate the meats and the seed. It takes the whole day to separate the fruits. It was really it was a really it was a unmemorable experience for us. Yeah, but we'll try more. We'll try more.
Yeah, wow. Seems like, Steve, we need to get you back for a part 2.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks so much for sharing about the fruit soy sauce. And we have quite a few questions surrounding how the fermentation works.
Yeah.
And I'll start with just one here. And these questions are from Xiaoxing, Brian, and Amanda. So thanks for sending those questions. The first question is, the weather is quite variable sometimes in Taiwan.
Yeah.
There's typhoons, it sometimes rains. So if the vats are outside in the sun, 6 months or a year, how do you make sure the quality is maintained, when the weather is changing all the time and it's exposed to the elements? What about, when there's typhoon, the lids get blown off? Like, how do you guys control and adjust for the weather?
You cannot control that part of natural, but what we can do is we try. We oftentimes we try to take care of them. So we have 2 different methods. One is dry style, and another one is half water, which we make while we put the moldy beans in the urns, we will decide which style we are making of that pot. And so on the top, we usually put a very thick sea salt that is for the protection under the black beans. So after we settled down, it was by you cannot take too much control. But what you can do is sometimes when the temperature is too hot, the half water one will the water will raise up, and they will dissolve the sea salt on the top, and we have to if we find out, we have to put some back, so the to prevent the contamination for different bacteria. So that what we can do is we just trying to manage and take care of each urns by doing doing more check, and if the sea salt on the top is dissolved, we just make some. We put back some more.
I think, yeah, someone in the last YouTube comment thing said that they felt it was like winemaking, which I think, you know, natural wine is very popular now, but I definitely see the similarities where it seems to me that like what you put in the urn like won't go, like it will be good. It won't go bad because Koji is a beneficial bacteria and, you know, you've protected it with the sea salt, but the flavor and the ultimate, you know, subtleties will be affected from year to year, which makes me think we should be labeling the year on the bottles now. But so like how different can they be? Like if you know, same formula, like what's the biggest spread that you've, you know, encountered, the biggest difference?
During the video, my brother said that while we making this the sauce, we actually put two of these the two different flavors. So we are trying to by doing the wood firing, we try to combine two different method of the moldy beans. So the flavor can be similar at each time that we made.
Got it.
So you use that combination of brewing method to try to like create
trying
some
consistency. The consistency.
Got it.
But
and just curious,
even,
like for you. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. Even because because each time we can make two urns, but even every single time while we put it in the same time, if it's different position, that means if it's not in the different position, that the how to say, I think I need a little bit help of the translations. 就是放那个瓮不同的地方，也有可能同一个时间，但味道可能也会不一样。就是我们那个光是那个瓮场的部分。
Got it. Yeah. So as you said that even in the same batch under the same time frame, depending on where the urn is located on in the space, like on the very left side or on the very right side, the flavor and the impact could be different. Yeah. And could you just curious, like, would you be able to kind of describe for people, like, you know, if it's a very sunny year versus a very rainy year, like what is the difference in the taste? What's the implications, like, in terms of flavor?
Generally, we like the soy sauce that is produced before the winter, because when during the winter time the temperature is lower and the flavor is more subtle. I would say subtle, but if we make it during the summertime, the flavor is wild. But so it really depends on people. Some people likes the black soybean sauce that brew during the summertime. Some people like during the winter time. So I think that is the most different things. And for the sunny weather and for the typhoon season, we don't like too much typhoon because the leaves would blow off by the strong wind, and the whole terracotta would destroy. So what we do usually, I saw some people are asking. So what we can do is we put the rock on the top of the lid, and that is the only thing we can do for now.
Got it. Amazing. Thanks for that detail. And I think there's just a few follow-ups to that. Is have you guys ever tried blending different type soy sauces from different years or different seasons together, similar to wine? How the way winemakers might take different batches of wine and mix them together to get a product that tastes more similar. Is that something you guys ever do?
Yeah. That is it's very similar while we are doing the soy sauce, but we just trying to combine the different urns. The time we will try to find a similar timing to combine all together. We haven't tried the longer one and the younger one. But sometimes when we do the really nice sauce like the Amber River series, we will put I will put the very longer one into the stove while we're firing. We'll just add a little bit of it. We have like the 10 years and more. So each time we will put a very little into the each one, so the flavor and the color would look nicer.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Thanks for explaining that. Interesting. Yeah. And there's another question about the fermentation process, and it's kind of the time frame. So I was wondering if you can help share a bit more about 6 months, a year, and the different time frames. Like, what's the impact? How do you guys land on what's the flavor on the impact on the flavor, the texture, and how do you guys think about how long to ferment?
Usually the soy sauce in Taiwan, it takes 4 months to 6 months. 6 months is something better, but for us, usually we ferment for at least 8 months to 1 year. So that is the timing we think it create a really nice, rich flavor and different layers of fragrance. Because I think as time we have taken good care of the soy sauce, and you give enough time for them to ferment, they give you back really nice flavor for you.
Got it. Thanks for that.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, I think this does come through in the again, because I've tried all of these and talked about them for a long time. I think this comes through like in the flavor too. So like the most expensive one, is like the Amber River. That one is like a single origin one. It's left the longest. And then probably, it's still expensive and nice, but the least is the Firewood. And I think that both are delicious, but one is definitely more like chocolatey, and to me smells like chocolate and kind of like much richer and deeper. And I would definitely use that. Like, I would not braise or cook for a long time with it. It's like I have my bowl of noodle soup with like delicate chicken stock, and I just like put it on there, or like right onto like congee or something. But I appreciate that you guys brew, both 6 month and 1 year, and because like you can, I mean, it's never really an everyday soy sauce, but you can like, increase your production and create soy sauces that are not as fine as like Amber River, but still, really delicious. And then, yeah, I had another thought, but I'll interrupt later with it when it comes back to me.
Thanks, yeah. And so going away from the fermentation process, Sean had asked, going back to sort of, Ozzy, you talked about your journey into working for the family and changing sort of going back home. What were some of the major challenges you and your brother faced when going back into the family business?
I think the biggest challenge for us is at the beginning, we are trying to change something. They are afraid that we will destroy the whole family business, even just changing the label. And so just changing the label, that create a lot of conflict with our family. So my father would say, if we change the label, the customer would not recognize us anymore. So I think at the beginning it's the most challenging things. You change the label, you change because we recount the cost, and then we raise up a little bit of our price to contain our to that our factory would have enough income to continue more things. So the price, the labels, and we also changed how we sell our soy sauce as well. In the past, we only the customer can only ordering by cell phone, but now we are trying to create an official website, and so people can go online and they can ask us privately on Facebook anything about soy sauce. So I think that helps a lot. But at the beginning, our parents is really not used to the new method the new strategy that we trying to make to push our new label.
And so how were you able to convince them then to take on risk?
For me, I was the rebuild one. So I couldn't by that time I did not like have a really good conversation with them. So I just changed it directly, and then we were by the time we had a really big fights. But after that, we trying to sit back and then watch and try to convince not convince each other. We trying to take good side of each other, and eventually they see the brand is improving, and the customers start to give me a really nice feedback. So our parents start to realize, the change, there are a few good changes is really making us even better.
Thanks. Yeah, and I think that's really interesting. It seems like that's a common problem we see in sort of second, third generation companies in Taiwan, right? Like a lot of sort of young people are taking over family businesses and struggle to update the brand.
Yeah. And I think that it happens all the brand. I think around the world it's the same. So you need a lot of time we need the new style, but you cannot. Every change is based on the tradition. So if you follow by this rule, the change is good. But if you don't follow this rule, then sometimes you might be you might I need a little bit translation，就是天马行空，就是如果太过想象的话，有些时候会太打高空，就是有点太不切实际。
Yeah, so as you said, if the new ideas are very out there, sort of head in the clouds and very wild and crazy, then it's not as realistic and difficult to transition into that kind of change. Right?
Yeah.
Great.
So you started with the label and then you pitched the pineapple soy sauce next, right? You gradually.
Yeah, the pineapple soy sauce is that we after we changed the labels and start to a new style of branding, and after that, and then for a while we start to think that what else we can do. So the fruit-based soy sauce is the original soy is start from that. And also I convinced with my mom that I saw a lot of really interesting things in Australia. Why not in Taiwan?
Yeah. And is that also why somebody had asked? We do seem to use an Australian salt in the soy sauce. What does that come from? And why Australian salt versus, say, Taiwanese salt?
For Taiwanese, I think the reason we use Taiwanese, the Australian salt is that it's cleaner and the price is in the average is not too way too expensive. But in Taiwan, I think there is one particular place that's still making salt, but that is just happened for these past few years. So before we start making salt in Taiwan, and one of the reason is for the the west coast is sandy area, so the salt would not as clean as Australia.
Got it. So it's because in Taiwan there wasn't many sources of salt, and also the quality wasn't quite as high. Okay.
Yeah.
I think this salt, I don't know what you call it, salt flat or whatever that Yi-Cheng's speaking of is they make this salt. It's called frost salt, right? It's like something about the winter climate, and that's when you can harvest it. But it is, I mean, I've been kind of looking for, it's on my list, but it's like there's really like one maker that's making this, basically like very fine or very like salt that would represent like the terroir of Taiwan, basically. So yeah, definitely. Yeah. I've been trying to get some. It's pretty hard to get.
We also have one particular things that you might really like, but it cannot be a product. It's that while we making the premium bottom soy sauce, because it's very salty, right? So while we are making that one, on the surface, sometimes that will create some kind of crystal on the surface, and it's like salt, but it's the salt made with soy sauce. So that one is very light, and it was very complex. It's salty but at the same time very flavorful. So sometimes we pick it up, but it's not enough to become a product.
Very exclusive.
Very exclusive.
Yeah. Next time if you come, I can give you some.
Great.
So Lillian will be there next week.
No worries.
And thanks for that. I'm very excited to try the salt. And just want to bring in a question, kind of going back to what you talked about revisiting the branding and creating a new brand for the company. We have a question from Jessica who's asking. Oh, sorry, my bad. A question from Amy who would like to hear more about the inspiration for the art direction and the design behind the brand. So, you refreshed the brand, you created all these new styles and packaging. Like, what is the inspiration for that?
As you know, Yu Ding Xing, we have like at least 4 series, but we are not the designers, so we just based on what we like. So the Yu Ding Xing product, we divide each individual with the color. That is when I found out when I was young, customer is always have a difficulty to know what's the soy sauce they bought last time. So I think by using the color to define would be easier for the customer. So for all those brand and logo, there is some kind of function to it. And so the original series, we use the color, and then after that, the Amber River one is designed by the other designer, and it's mostly that one is my brother's work. So, but while I'm in Australia, we are doing a lot of discussion about it as well. So each design has their own meanings to it, and like raw sauce, and after that the rice paste. We will see what's the soy sauce, the flavor of soy sauce and the style, and then we're trying to find the right designer to make the label.
Got it.
Yeah, I think the Amber River soy sauce is like a photograph of the filter that you use to put the beans in, and then you get this like gradation of color, which, I mean, it took me a while to realize that, but I saw a picture and thought, oh, that's what that is.
Yeah. It was the while we that was the one of the process while we are filtering the cooked beans. So the muslin would have kind of layers, and we take the picture of that.
So that's the background for the Amber River one.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Hey, I wanted to float a question up. I don't know if we're moving away from production, but I saw a couple coming in from Brian regarding the Koji, and also like washing the Koji, and like it seems like so much of your time is spent just keeping that microorganism in balance. So I think Brian had asked if you use a particular Koji or many Koji producers make different starters that have different qualities. So how do you select what to use?
I think each soy sauce factory has their own Koji, and each one can only have one, because Koji is kind of can I say stingy character, because they cannot share the environment with others. So even if you go to Japan or China or Hong Kong or Singapore, if they naturally brew the soy sauce, they can only one the Koji inside their factory.
So yours is just a particular blend to you, basically, over the years that you've used.
Yeah, I think my father tried. They try different Kojis, and at the end he think that this one would be the better for him to do the fermentation, and after that he passed on this one, and then we continue to use it.
Got it. So it's been around in the family for quite a while then.
Yes, I think couple years we try different one, and it doesn't goes out really well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And is there a difference between a Taiwanese specific Koji? Have you guys tried ones that are
Yes.
from Taiwan?
Yeah, the one that I said is we tried the Taiwanese one, but I think the reason we cannot master it because the whole environment in our factory is all the traditional one. So the new Koji comes in, they would have some kind of they would fight for each other. I think the whole environment is becoming the traditional culture that we have been using for a long time. But the new one, when the new one comes in, they have I would say because the environment, so they cannot dip well. So the fermentation were not as good as the traditional one.
Got it. Thanks. So it's hard to transition also between two different types of Koji.
Yeah, but if you want to do the trend, if you want to change the different Koji, it might take for a while to change the whole environment. It might take maybe 1 or 2 or even more years to do the whole changes.
It's back to that kind of winemaking thing again, where you can't just like start a new batch and expect it to be different. Because I remember in the film, like the terracotta urns or vats have like capillaries. Yes. And I think, your brother said he even saw some soy sauce like seeping out after he takes it out. Like it's just very ingrained in those old ceramic. So that makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. Great. And then I just want to flag that it's 9:10 at the moment, and we'll probably still stay on and try to answer as many questions as we can. But we will have a recording of this after this is completed. So if you have to drop off at night, like feel free, and then we'll post the video up. And here we have a question from Amy for Steve. So we'll jump to Steve right now about the film. And the question here is, if you had more time to capture, more time for the documentary, what other aspects of Taiwanese culture or Yi-Cheng's family would you have liked to capture or to share?
Their family is really cute. They're really charming, just because it's really rare to see a whole family working together. The person you don't see very much is the mom, who's kind of the backbone. While the boys are out, doing the production, she's there, managing the household. And they also have a whole bunch of workers that we also don't really see much of. So that would have been nice to see more of the whole factory, actually. But yeah, I really would have seen would have if we could do a longer piece, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, then I would talk much more about their family backgrounds, much more about their mom and their dad. And actually, we did shoot a lot of that stuff. We just didn't have time to in this short duration for the edit. But I was interested more in hanging out with the two brothers, especially Ozzy, and he's been out in Australia and his experiences coming back. And I think that the whole family dynamic and the struggles is really interesting, and something that we can all relate to in terms of our struggles with our parents and the traditionalism, especially of Taiwan and Asian culture and being filial and all that. And I think the whole area is some place that I had never been to, Xiluo, and it was actually during the shooting. I think I told my mom at some point that I was doing this, and I didn't realize that she'd grown up not far from there for the first 5 years of her life, and so it would be really nice to see more of that surrounding area, just because it's not someplace that most people would visit when they go to Taiwan.
Can you actually talk more about Xiluo and just what that area is like? And I mean, it would be great to hear from both of you, maybe starting with Steve, just like what it's like. You live in Taipei, right?
Yeah.
So coming from Taipei, your impressions, and then maybe Ozzy afterwards, hearing like just region, like agriculturally, what makes the region so special.
Yeah, the town is actually really special, and we only saw little bits in the beginning of it. they have a really famous old street, and it almost looks like a set of like a Taiwanese Western, because the buildings are have so much heritage to them. They're so ornate, and you don't really see that kind of decoration or money being put into the architecture in most of these old agricultural towns. And I think it was your brother that said that it was because might have been the Japanese who were there and invested into the town, into the buildings. But it was definitely something that I had never encountered in any other city in terms of this really, really rich style of buildings.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Ozzy, do you want to give us your thoughts on Xiluo, even maybe a bit of the history behind that?
Xiluo, I think Xiluo is in a very important spot. It's just right in the central in Taiwan. So while before the high speed railway was built, it was like everyone who wants to go up to the north and who wants to go down to the south for the business, they need to stay in Xiluo. So Xiluo used to be a very popular and very crowded, just like a Taipei before in the past. But after the high speed rail was built, and people they don't need to stay in Xiluo for overnight. So we slowly all the crowds start to they start to because because we have only mostly farming here, so the young people they don't have enough job provided in Xiluo, so people start to go out. And if you can see the old Xiluo street, you can see a lot of architecture and design. The building is very, very nice. And we also have the Xiluo Bridge, which is established by during the after World War II. So it looks really it was really nice architecture buildings. And
Got it.
Yeah.
And what makes Xiluo like such a special place for soy sauce? Because it's in Taiwan, it's known to be where the best soy sauces are from. Like, what makes it special there?
I think it is because in the past we have really nice quality water resource in Xiluo, and also we have a really nice really nice sunset, nice sun to and the temperature to ferment our black soybean sauce. So, and then it's very convenient as well. So I think a lot of good stuff, and black beans is not too far from here. So people in the past they are forming a kind of like village, and they start to learn how the soy sauce is made, and then spread out all around the whole Xiluo.
Got it. So the good water, good sunlight, and proximity.
It was before, but not now. Before the water resource is super nice. So right now what we do is that we use the filter for 3 different types of filter water to make our soy sauce.
I see. Interesting.
Yeah.
Great. And now Lisa, I want to introduce another question from Susie.
Yeah. What can you read it? I'm like, yeah. Yeah. This is so maybe you heard me like typing in the background. This was because we were discussing this question. I think that this is a really important question, and I can only answer it from my perspective. So the question is, what are the implications of China-Taiwanese relations in terms of these artisanal breweries? I don't know what the implications are for you, Yi-Cheng, but I think for me, as someone selling it, I think like one of the most difficult things is presenting the product as uniquely Taiwanese, but also soy sauce and a lot of the food that is made with it is culturally Chinese. So navigating that language about like Chinese food versus like China and Taiwan relations right now, and also just the Taiwanese diaspora is not difficult, but it's certainly sensitive. And I think that's something that I'm still trying to figure out how to do. And then I guess what I would add to that is that I think that a product you make, it's the miso soy paste, is actually like really representative of Taiwan because, well, first of all, soy paste for our, we didn't really go into it in the video, but for the audience, soy paste is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's essentially like soy sauce thickened with rice starch or rice grains. And that is almost used like as an oyster sauce, but it's very Taiwanese. So, the soy paste is very Taiwanese. And then the miso, so you guys collaborated with like a kind of like heritage or heirloom miso producer, and you mix that into one product. And to me, it's like, oh, only in Taiwan do you see this bottle of miso soy paste that is like so natural and tastes so familiar, but is like this combination of like Taiwan's past. So I'll pass it to you, but I think that there are some really interesting cultural implications as well as some difficulty around the language and presentation.
That bottle of soy sauce we cooperate with different company. Another one in the north in Mandarin is called He Nai Chuan, which they are promoting all the grain that produced in Taiwan. So the miso is actually all the ingredients are from Taiwan as well. So the rice koji is from Hualien, and the soy is locally grown in Taiwan as well. So after they make the miso, we blend it, and then we mix the fermenting for more than 1 year black soybean liquids, and then we thicken with the sticky rice, and then to make that bottle of the miso soy sauce paste.
Got it. Yeah, so I think the collaboration with local companies is definitely very interesting. I think it's also like a miso company, right? So it brings in that Japanese sort of heritage that is present here in Taiwan. I think going back to the audience's question, it's like, what about the Chinese and China and Taiwan relations? Like, how does that have an implication on your work or the way you present your work?
It's because the style of making soy sauce in between Taiwan and China now I see is very, very different, even though there are some similarities. But the original style is from China. That is for sure. But after moving to Taiwan, depending on the time, the weather, and also the agriculture, we will change the how we make slightly. So the flavor is also changed as well. And as for the how to define China and Taiwanese flavor, is that the question that you guys asked? The China and Taiwanese sauce, it's a little. I think the flavor is very different, and for the labels, I think I need a little bit translation. 就是那个问题是 问题是
其实问题就是问说，就是台湾跟中国，就是可能政治跟历史上有一些比较多不同的，
对
不同的议题。那想要就问这些议题对你们的酱油有没有什么影响？就说可能是不管是像 Lisa 刚刚讲，就是可能说这是台湾的酱油，但其实是中国食物的历史，或者是现在中国台湾的。就是政治的关系有没有对你们有什么影响
？I think that it's not as我觉得影响应该没有到这么大，因为毕竟我们讲的如果是食物的话，我们不会去刻意去强调中国跟台湾，我们就是讲食物，然后它好不好吃这样。大概就是这样。Yeah.
Okay, so I said the influence on Chinese traditions isn't too bad. They really just focus on the fact that this is a good food product, and sort of the care that goes into making the product, and not really emphasizing it's Taiwanese versus Chinese or any sort of bring that into the conversation. But I think Ozzy, you brought up an interesting point earlier was Taiwanese soy sauce versus Chinese soy sauce. Because I think for a lot of people like who live in the US or in other countries, we see, when we go to a Chinese supermarket, we see Taiwanese soy sauces, Chinese soy sauces, and we might not clear way of identifying the difference or understanding that versus the same way people might say, oh, like French wine from this specific region is like this, Italian wines like this. So like what you mentioned they are different, but could you go into a bit more specifics on like what the differences are?
The difference, I would say it depending on what kind of dishes that you want to make. So in Taiwan, we develop our own different cooking style. Like we have like 牛肉面, which is right now I would say is very Taiwanese style, and also 卤肉饭, something like this, and the traditional food that we have. So I think it really depends on what kind of food that you want to make. If you want to make something more Chinese, then you have definitely it's better for you to use Chinese soy sauce.
Is it because the flavor profile is different? Like what's the difference? What's the difference in the taste?
For Taiwanese people, of course, we have the soy base, and we also have the black soybeans. So the flavor is definitely different. And for the black soybean sauce, you can brew for really long time, and the flavor would not get lost. But if that is for soybean base, the food that it's better for you for just do the dipping, but not cook for way too long time.
I think one way to talk about it, or that I think about it as, my mom is from Taiwan, but her background culturally is Chinese. So the kind of food experience has been mixed across older established Taiwanese dishes and Chinese foods. But I think for example, light and dark soy sauce, which a lot of people are familiar with, does not really exist in the Taiwanese soy sauce production, right? So the dark soy sauce being actually less on flavor and more on color and texture, and the lighter being the all-purpose. That's kind of my understanding, southern China or maybe other parts of China too. I actually don't know that much about that, but I know that in Taiwan it doesn't exist. So if you get a recipe that's calling for light and dark soy sauce, that would be an instance where you would use a more culturally Chinese soy sauce. And then I'll always remember when I was kind of first starting my business, I was just dialoguing with people on Instagram, and someone was like, oh, I'm so happy you have that bottom soy sauce, or how do you say it in Chinese? Hu di, right?
Hu di yo.
Yeah, hu di yo, yeah. And people said I took classes from Fu Pei Mei in Taiwan, and she always told me to use the vat bottom soy sauce for this particular dish. And I thought like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you can buy this, because like to date, like when do you walk into a store and like can find that? But I think that the flavor is like about, it's, to me, it's like hard to describe how it's different. It's like definitely has this like nostalgic immediate recognition, and like beyond that it's really hard to describe unless you've kind of like grown up experiencing the food. And I would say that like the Chinese soy sauce has some like higher notes that are coming in from like the wheat, the yellow soybean, and the Taiwanese soy sauce is definitely much more it's not sweet, but like in terms of the palate, it's like a little bit sweeter and it sits further back in your mouth. But that's, it's, in a way, it's neither here nor there, because it's so complex, both of them. So that's the way that I would think about that. I think we're kind of getting close to time, but I just wanted to kind of like shift the conversation back towards you, Steve. I don't know how to get this question off the screen. So one thing that I really connected with you about is just that, this idea that like, you leave Taipei and go to a place like Xiluo and you discover like all of this amazing, architecture or kind of like cultural expressions that like aren't typically what you see in big cities. And like, that's something that's guided my travels through Taiwan since I was in my 20s. It's like, I'm going to leave Taipei and just go somewhere else. And I think that when we talked, you had like mentioned a lot of like Taiwanese filmmakers, Taiwanese films. You had mentioned a book about a bicycle. And I think that like, I just wanted to ask you like what, well, maybe I'll phrase it this way. I think a lot of people joined this premiere, this screening, because they were interested in the depiction of Taiwan in film or like in writing. And I'm just curious if you have any recommendations of resources to go find out more about this kind of other side of Taiwan or the more traditional aspects of Taiwan, and not just like the top 5 things you have to do in Taipei when you have 48 hours in Taiwan. So on the spot, but
yeah, it's hard. I actually I don't know. Man, I don't know if I can answer this question. I mean, I don't know.
Or maybe it doesn't exist and this is it.
Yeah, a lot of it is just word of mouth. There was I mean, there was that book that was I think it was a Booker Prize winner. There's actually a lot of new authors that are writing materials on Taiwan, both people who are Taiwanese, but also people who are part of the Taiwanese diaspora. Movies. It's still kind of separate, the Taiwanese industry and the American industry. There isn't really any middle ground. But I don't know. A lot of it is actually just word of mouth, just talking to different people.
Yeah, it's hard to.
Sorry, I can't really.
No. I mean, it's a kind of a selfish question because I'm always like just doing research on. I just like only search in Chinese language and try to like find things out. That's like short of being there. And then like, what are your impressions of like just I want to say, I mean, we're talking about agriculture and like food production, but I think, I know there's like a movement of looking at kind of like older architecture as well. And you had described the architecture in Xi Luo, but like, what are your impressions of some of the more traditional Taiwanese architecture and like, what's it like basically?
Gosh. It's I think it's pretty humble. Not the ones in Xiluo. Xiluo is a lot more ornate, but it's kind of like Taiwan is a mix of a lot of different cultures, and I think the environment, the artistic expression is reflecting that. So we have a lot of different references from different places. You have to remember that Taiwan is still kind of a semi-tropical island, so it does have some of that vibe and that kind of slow lifestyle pace. That is reflected also in the architecture in terms of like climate and heat mitigation and humidity. But also we have a bit of the Japanese, we have some Chinese, we have, even like a lot of the from what I understand, a lot of his like the people who have immigrated way centuries ago into Southeast Asia all originated from Taiwan. A lot of the islanders, and so we have some of this very local culture and some of this Aboriginal culture too that doesn't really get talked about a lot.
Yeah, very true.
So that hodgepodge is I think what makes Taiwan so fantastic.
Yeah, I think that's reflected. We were talking about the food earlier. I think that's reflected in the food too. It's like people are often like, "What's Taiwanese food?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, it's kind of the story of the history of Taiwan." Like, it's kind of hard to say what it is, but it has like all these elements that you're describing. I think the architecture is the same. So, I think we're at time. So, Lillian, was there anything else you wanted us to address? Otherwise, I will make my closing statement.
Yeah, no, I think we covered almost all the questions. We just have a few stragglers. I think and I'll just bring that up specifically. One we have from Immersive Traveler who asked how much of the soy sauce actually go bad when it gets fermented. So is it like 10% of them go bad when it's being fermented or not? So that's just a quick question, Ozzy, for you. And then lastly, I guess Sean brought up a question of, generally curious about Yunhai's goals with Taiwanese food. And I think I'll just let you use that to wrap it up. But I think, Ozzy, just a quick question for you on, how much of it goes bad. And actually a personal question too, I think people might be wondering too, is what does Yu Ding Xing mean? And where does that name come from? Yeah, so just those two questions.
Okay, so as you can see on the video, we have like nearly 200 urns. So if you are not like, if some of them, we might not have that much time to take a look every single time. So some might go bad because during the typhoon or sun or weather, rainy weather. So if it goes back, the bacteria will go in aside, and then it creates some kind of like smelly, like some kind of like stinky tofu, or like that your son has not washed for a week, something like that. And then we need to take them all out. So it really depends how much for how much percentage it goes bad. It really depends on like if we really if we can instantly find out that one goes bad, we need to do immediately change take out the rotten one, and do some we spread some more salt on the top to do the recover. So it really depends. Sometimes it's like 5%, sometimes more than 5 or 10, and sometimes it could be more. Yeah.
Got it. So it depends on the conditions, and
yeah, it depends on conditions.
Got it. And then just yeah. And the last question is just then, can you tell us about the name of Yu Ding Xing and where that comes from, what that means?
Oh, the name of Yu Ding Xing is actually from my grandfather, but at the beginning, Yu in Taiwan, the name of that Yu is the meaning of J in Chinese, but the name of the Yu Ding Xing at that time wasn't that good, because my great grandfather said, because J is afraid of fire, but how can you put the J on the top of the stove, which we call ding, that means like stove. So for the J on the top of the stove, is the name is not good. So afterward we changed the brand, and then my father would pass on the brand for past 20 or 30 years, and for the past on 2012 we changed back the the original name that create from my grandfather, and I changed the name Yu to different Chinese character, so it doesn't have the it doesn't have the problem that my grandfather said. The Yu is the Yu is afraid of fire, so it changed. We use the same sound but different Chinese character to replace the characters. So right now, Yu Ding Xing, Yu means royal, and Ding means stove. Xing means prosperity. So I just changed the first character, and after that, it all went really nice.
Good move.
Yeah.
You have a lot of prosperity with the stove, and
yeah. So I'm not so sure if you can understand what I'm just talking, because in Chinese, in our tradition, or it's a because the Yu it doesn't goes well with fire, so that's why we changed the name. And
yeah,
like 2 years ago, when we moving our old place to a new place, we also find the seal that is said Yu Ding Xing, the original one, and then we are really happy about it. We find our history.
that's great.
Thank you so much, Ozzy.
No worries.
Yeah, so I can take the last question and kind of close out here. So I think the goal of Yunhai is pretty much what you see here, which is like really connecting with amazing people living and working in Taiwan, whether that's like a filmmaker or a soy sauce maker. Of course, that's through the lens of food. Initially, it was kind of a like, my friend makes this amazing hot sauce. Why can't you get something like this here? I'm going to stop bringing it in my suitcase and just start importing it. And that was the initial impulse, but it kind of gradually changed into like, well, it just doesn't make sense to me that these artisanal products are simply not available, as though people don't know about them. And it's not a new thing in Taiwan to have these like traditional products. You know, of course, like the Yu Ding Xing family is changing the branding and marketing, but that product has existed, you know, for 3 generations. So to me, I thought like, well, let's bring all this stuff over. And it is not like, I mean, it's a labor of love. Like, of course, we want the business to grow, but like in general, when you're working with small producers, they have capacity limits. They're not necessarily set up to export. They have like already a thriving local market, and they're not in it to like grow their business to be huge. So it's this really kind of like intense exploration of a relationship with real people doing real work, and then figuring out how to present that product and that story to an engaged and interested audience in the US. So yeah, our goal is essentially to kind of bring just the best products that we can find over. And there were some questions about like the Taiwan-China relations, and I think that, you know, that's a very big question, but one, I don't know, I guess outcome here is that it's been difficult to share and explain what like the new Taiwanese identity really is. And we can definitely do that through food. And I think that identity, personally, I feel that it's developing and has been constantly and quickly. So those are my goals. And I think that, you know, of course, like I want to share like tons of recipes and like all this great food and like open a store, but ultimately it's about sharing Taiwanese culture. Any follow-ups there from you guys, or? Well enough put, I guess. Yeah, and then I guess, yeah, I think that, you know, if you enjoyed this event, it would be great for all of you to kind of share what we're doing and share the video. And we recently started a newsletter called, it's just called Yunhai Taiwan Stories, but that is definitely like a non-product marketing type of newsletter. It's like a long form exploration of Taiwanese food culture, where we'll try to share, of course, like we're trying to bring the products in, but we're also trying to share recipes and stories that aren't just about our products, and like really, just like share this love and passion for Taiwan and the Taiwanese voice. The Taiwanese wave is another, kind of expression that's being used in Japan and Korea to describe popular Taiwanese culture. I think that's pretty interesting. I think, I think that kind of wraps it up. And this was amazing. I really loved talking with you all. I loved seeing the video go live for the first time. And I really appreciate, the audience and the time you made for us tonight and all of your questions. And I hope that it was an enjoyable and informative experience.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Yeah, and if you want to sign up for the newsletter, it's yunhai.substack.com. I'll type it in the chat. Thanks. So you'll see that come through.
Yep.
I can do it without a typo. All right. Good night, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
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 I have to type this before I end the broadcast. All right. Bye.